What I'd like to do today is share some of my experiences in real estate and investing in hopes that it'll benefit you in some of your adventures. I've had many successes in my life and I've made many mistakes. And of course, I've learned quite a bit more from my mistakes than my successes. Before I give you my background and establish some credibility with you, I'd like to share with you a little story. It's called Cottage by the Sea. I don't know its original author or where it came from, but I've told it many times. There was a successful workaholic that was on vacation down in Costa Rica. He was sitting on the porch of his hotel with his laptop, cell phone in one ear, about 10 a.m. in the morning, answering the rest of his emails that he received overnight. And he looked across a lagoon and he saw a quaint little cottage, swaying palm trees, blue lagoon water. And he sees a man come out of that cottage, embrace his wife, get into a boat, row away around the point. Our entrepreneur was still working around noontime when he sees the boat come back. And the boat passes his little jetty where he would have pulled in if he was going home. And he pulls the boat, totally brimming with fish, up to the dock of the restaurant. There it appears that he's unloading this fish and exchanging it for some wine, some bread, and some other food supplies for the day. By 1 o'clock, he's made it back to his home, pulls up his boat onto the shore, embraces his wife, sits down in the breeze overlooking the sea, eats a meal, lays down with his hammock, and goes in to take a nap. Later that evening, our entrepreneur, our industrialist, our workaholic, goes for dinner and he sees the fisherman and his wife being treated by the maitre d' to a nice dinner. The next morning he sees the same thing happen. 10 o'clock, the guy gets up, embraces his wife, goes out fishing, comes back with a boat full of fish, which he again exchanges for some wine and some other supplies at the restaurant. Again, he sees him at dinner. Third time this happens, he sees the boat coming in and he goes to meet him. Our entrepreneur goes to meet the fisherman at the dock. And he says, "Sir, how is it that you can go out for only 2 hours and come back with so many fish? And by the way, it's the finest fish I've ever eaten. I've been ordering it in the restaurant every night." The fisherman says, "Senor, my family's been living here in Costa Rica for many generations. I know all the secret fishing spots. I could bring in 10 times that amount of fish every day if I wanted to." So he thanks the man and he goes back, thinks about this overnight. The next day he meets the fisherman, he comes in, he says, "Senor, I've been speaking to my friends up in Boston. I've got a proposition for you." "What's that?" He says, "We'll finance you. You can buy a fleet of boats, hire men to go out and get all this fish. We're going to build a cannery here in Costa Rica that you'll own a portion of." And the fisherman says, "Why would I want to do that?" He says, "Well, in a few years you'll become a millionaire." The fisherman says, why would I want to do that?" Our industrialist says, "Well, then you can retire, buy a house by the sea, sleep till 10 o'clock in the morning, take siesta in the afternoon, and have a wonderful life." And it kind of dawns on him. The lesson here, and I'm teaching it, not living it, is that you may already be where you want to be in your life. Examine where you are now and where you want to go. And sometimes all that hard work maybe to get you where you are today. I think it's a good lesson. My wife wishes I would listen to it a little bit more clearly. A little bit about my background. I was born in a little town called Harrington Park, the upper right-hand tip of New Jersey, about 30 minutes from Manhattan. I was a very precocious young man. By the time I was 10, I went on a freighter by myself to Germany and lived for the summer. I was visiting the summer before, my mother's pen pal from Germany was visiting, and they invited me to come visit them the next year. I asked my father if I could go. And he said if I could raise half of the 150, keep in mind I was 9 at this time. Matter of fact, I had my 10th birthday on the freighter in the middle of the Atlantic. He said if I could raise half of the $300 that I was needed for the freighter fare and airfare back, this was 1962, I could go. I did. I raised that money by cultivating a ground cover and building sand flats in the backyard and selling them door to door. Shortly after my return from Europe, I started mowing lawns for money, like many kids did. But by the time I was 12 or 13, I was doing 30 lawns a week. I pulled a pony cart around by hand or with a self-powered little tractor mower. I hired a kid that was older than me that could drive a truck eventually. And I was doing monthly billing, and I had a payroll. And this was before the 8th grade. I wound up giving that business to my brother when he graduated from college. For my college degree, I went to Rider University. It was called Rider College back then. I absolutely loved school and learning, and still do, in fact. But I was anxious to get to work, and I'm not sure why. Kind of like the fisherman above, I should have been happy where I was, being fed, housed, and in the company of beautiful women. In any case, I majored in marketing and accounting, and I finished my degree in 3 years. I knew I wanted to be a salesman, and I had heard that IBM had the best sales training class. I remember starting for IBM in 1973 at a starting salary of $13,500, and I worked for a gentleman called Lionel Fultz in Baltimore, Maryland. After getting married and leaving IBM for the more lucrative career of an industrial adhesive salesman, I sat down in my apartment in New Jersey and did a financial analysis, one that I wound up doing many times for my friends. What it wound up being was a rent or own analysis. This was pre-Lotus, pre-Excel, but post-accounting and T-bars. I convinced myself financially and logically that I needed to buy a house. The next day, I bought a house. It wound up being the best $37,050 I ever spent. I haven't stopped since then. My first real estate course, excuse me, was given by Al Lowry, author of what I still believe is one of the best real estate investing books ever written, How You Can Become Financially Independent by Investing in Real Estate. His subsequent books I don't believe are as good as that first, and you'll get a kick out of some of the prices in that book, but the principles are still very sound today, and they've made me and many of his followers and students a fortune. It's still available on Amazon. I've given copies of this book to many of my friends. Immediately after taking that course, I set myself a goal of buying one property a year. I became active in Fort Myers real estate, which is where I live now, prior to moving here in 1992. My brother Bill and 2 other partners and I purchased, I think it was 9 acres in South Fort Myers and subdivided into 12 lots. I kept one of those lots as profit and built a house on it. Currently, I own Market America Realty Investments, a commercial, residential, full-service real estate brokerage. I did start a development company called Bricks and Development, which I sold in August of 2005. I always tell people that will listen that I'm in the real estate customer business. I'm real estate customer business, not the real estate agent business. I believe this to be an important distinction because I believe long-term relationship with the customer is a key to our success. Back in August of 2005, I sold my real estate development business. In hindsight, everybody goes, well, that was a brilliant time because August of 2005 was when really the market began to crash. I'll take credit for intelligence now, but it was really luck at the time.